Every serious conversation about power must begin with a difficult admission. The world is not governed by good intentions. It is shaped by incentives, fear, ambition, loyalty, and survival. In this opening chapter, we set the stage for understanding Machiavelli not as a villain, but as a diagnostic thinker who observed human nature without comforting illusions. To understand influence, leadership, and strategy, we must first understand the ground on which power stands. Where power begins. When most people hear the name Machiavelli, they think of manipulation, they think of deception, they think of cold ambition. Yet that reaction may say more about modern discomfort than about Machiavelli himself. Niccolò Machiavelli was writing in a time of political chaos. City-states were unstable. Alliances shifted constantly. Leaders rose and fell quickly. Violence was not theoretical. It was immediate. His central question was not, how do I become immoral? It was far more practical. How does a leader survive in a world where loyalty is fragile and fortune unpredictable? Power for Machiavelli begins with clarity. Clarity about human nature, clarity about incentives, clarity about fear and desire. He observes something that remains true today. People are not consistently loyal because they love you. They are loyal because it benefits them, or because they fear the consequences of betrayal. This insight feels uncomfortable because it challenges idealistic narratives. But Machiavelli was not dismissing virtue entirely. He was warning leaders not to depend on virtue alone. Imagine a CEO who believes that being kind guarantees loyalty. In stable times that may work. But during crisis, when jobs are threatened and competition intensifies, self-interest often overrides affection. The leader who understands this prepares accordingly. The one who ignores it is surprised. Machiavelli does not argue that leaders should be cruel for pleasure. Instead, he suggests that if force must be used, it should be decisive and controlled. Uncertainty breeds instability. Predictable strength can create order. Here we see the beginning of strategic realism. He distinguishes between appearing virtuous and being virtuous in every circumstance. Why? Because public perception shapes stability. A ruler must appear just, merciful, and trustworthy. Yet if survival demands deviation, he must be capable of it. This is not a celebration of deception. It is an acknowledgement that political systems are shaped by perception as much as principle. To understand this psychologically, consider how humans respond to signals. We are constantly evaluating strength, competence, and reliability. When leadership appears weak or inconsistent, uncertainty increases. Uncertainty amplifies fear. Fear destabilizes systems. Machiavelli's realism begins with accepting this chain reaction. He also introduces the concept of fortuna, often translated as fortune or luck. Fortune represents the unpredictable forces that disrupt human plans. Economic shifts, natural disasters, political betrayal. No leader controls these completely. However, Machiavelli insists that while fortune controls part of life, the other part belongs to human agency. Preparation, adaptability, and decisiveness can shape outcomes within uncertainty. Think of fortune as the river. Sometimes it floods, sometimes it recedes. A wise leader builds levees before the storm arrives. Waiting until disaster strikes is not strategy, it is negligence. This brings us to a crucial psychological principle. Anticipation reduces vulnerability. Leaders who understand human nature do not wait for betrayal to believe betrayal is possible. They design systems that reduce incentives for it. They reward loyalty strategically. They maintain authority visibly. Machiavelli is often quoted as saying it is safer to be feared than loved, if one must choose. This statement is frequently misunderstood. He does not claim fear is superior in every situation. He argues that love depends on the goodwill of others, which can shift. Fear, when structured around predictable consequences, may be more reliable. The key word is predictable. Random cruelty creates hatred. Structured consequence creates deterrence. There is a difference. In modern organizations, this might translate into clear performance standards. When expectations are ambiguous, morale declines. When consequences are inconsistent, trust erodes. But when standards are transparent and enforcement is steady, stability increases. Machiavelli's realism is less about brutality and more about structural awareness. He also warns against relying on mercenaries. In his time, mercenaries were soldiers who fought for payment rather than loyalty. His broader point applies today. Never outsource your core security to those whose incentives are misaligned with your survival. Translated into contemporary terms, this might mean building internal competence rather than depending entirely on external contractors. It might mean cultivating genuine alliances rather than temporary transactional partnerships. At its foundation, Machiavelli's thinking rests on a sober assessment of human motivation. People seek advantage, they avoid loss, they respond to incentives, they protect themselves first. This is not cynicism, it is behavioral observation. Modern psychology supports much of this. Loss aversion, status competition, and self-interest are well-documented drivers of decision-making. What Machiavelli lacked in laboratory tools, he compensated for through political experience. Yet there is a danger in misreading him. Some interpret Machiavellian thinking as permission for manipulation in all domains of life. But Machiavelli wrote primarily for rulers responsible for maintaining order in unstable systems. Applying his insights requires context. Strategic realism in governance is not identical to interpersonal exploitation. The deeper lesson is this: morality without strength is fragile, and strength without discipline is destructive. Power begins with understanding. Understanding begins with observation. Observation requires emotional detachment. This detachment does not mean indifference. It means the ability to see human behavior as it is, rather than as we wish it to be. In your own life, this might involve recognizing where you assume loyalty without reinforcing it. It might involve noticing where you hesitate to enforce boundaries out of fear of being disliked. It might require accepting that not everyone shares your long-term vision. Strategic clarity can feel isolating at first, but it prevents naive vulnerability. As we continue this journey into Machiavelli's thought, we will explore not only how power is acquired, but how it is maintained without self-destruction. Because unchecked ambition can consume the very structure it builds. This opening chapter establishes the foundation. Power begins with understanding human nature, structuring incentives, and preparing for uncertainty. It begins not with cruelty, but with clarity. This was the beginning of our deeper journey into Machiavellian strategy. In the next chapter, we will examine how reputation, fear, and calculated mercy interact in maintaining authority over time. If you are committed to understanding power without illusions and leadership without naivete, stay with the series. True strategic awareness develops step by step, and we have only just begun.